Okay, Erev Tov, welcome. We are continuing our Tzurba Ben series on Orach Chaim. We're on volume number 8. We're kind of in the middle of the book here. We're studying the laws of Tzitzit. Last couple of classes we've spoken about various ideas of Tzitzit. Obviously, the number of corners, can Tzitzit as a shirt or undershirt, what is exempt from a Tzitzit. Today, we're going to look at a few other issues of Tzitzit that are often questions that are asked, specifically how many knots does it have to have, how many strings, how many times do I wrap, what happens if they rip, questions such as that. And we hope to finish the shiur number 5 today, although it's a little bit long, but I hope to finish it today. So we're on page 163. If you are following in our book over here, the Tzurba Mirabanan, page 163. It begins with the Gemara in Masechet Menachot. The Gemara says, Tana Banan, Kama chutin hu noten. How many strings does one insert in the garment? Bet Shammai omrim dalit. Bet Shammai says 4. Ubet Hillel omrim gimel. And Bet Hillel says 3. The Kama te meshuleshet. And the how much should be hanging beyond the knots? Bet Shammai omrim daled. Bet Shammai says 4 finger breadths. We're going to see that this is the width of a thumb. Ubet Hillel omrim gimel. And Bet Hillel says 3 finger breadths. Amar Papa hilcheta daled betoch shalosh meshuleshet arba. Papa says that we attach 4 strings with 3 finger breadths at the edge of the garment, and it should hang down 4 beyond the knots. Okay, so right away we see that we follow like Bet Shammai here. This is one of the few times that we follow the halacha like Bet Shammai, because we know that we put in 4. We'll see that codified in halacha soon. So Gemara asks, "Lememra titlu shiura." Is this to say that there's an actual shiur, a minimum required measure for the tzitzit? Or minhu, there's a contradiction that says tzitzit in en tzitzit ela yotze. That since the pasuk says ve'asulam tzitzit, tzitzit is just what emerges from the garment. Ve'en tzitzit ela mashu. It's really just anything, any amount. Ukwara uzikne bet Shammai ve'zikne bet Hillel aliyat Yochanan ben Betera ve'amru. That the sages of Bet Shammai and the sages of Bet Hillel went to the attic of Yochanan ben Betera and said, Tzitzit en la shiur, kayotze bo lulav en bo shiur. That the actual fringes have no measure, and neither does a lulav have measure. So the Gemara answers, my love en la shiur klal. Does that not mean that the fringes have no measure at all? Lo, the Gemara says that's not true. En la shiur milmala. It means they don't have a maximum measure. Aval yesh la shiur lemata. But they do have a minimum measure. Okay? So now, there's another Gemara in Menachot that also mentions Gedil Shnaim, Gedilim Arba'a. This is in reference to the pasuk that we learned last week. It was also last week's parasha, Gedilim Taselach. So Gedil is minimum 2, because that means it's twisted. It needs at least 2 cords to twist something. And Gedilim is plural, so 2 times 2 would be 4. So from there we see that 4 strings are required. And Shulchan Aruch codifies this in Orach Chaim Siman Yud Aleph Halacha Yud Bet. Minyan chutei asisiyot bekol knaf. The number of strings on each corner, arba'a kfulim shehem shmona. They have 4, which are doubled, which equal 8. Ve'im hosif pasul. And if he adds more, then it is pasul. So there's a machloket between the 4 finger breadths that are mentioned in the Gemara Masechet Menachot that we started off today's class with, whether that is from the section of the string that is not tied and wound. According to Rashi, that's what it is. And therefore, the tied and the wound section must be 2 finger breadths. And therefore, the thread that is not tied has to be double that. So there yields a 6 finger breadth minimum, meaning you have to have 6 minimum for each tzitzit string. And the Tosfot and Rosh say no, it has to be 12 finger breadths. So that's what the Rosh says in Ilchot Ktanot. That the length of the tzitzit should be at least 12 finger breadths long. Shelish gedil arba etzbaot. A third of that consists of the tied part. Ushne shalishei anaf shmona etzbaot. And the 2/3 of the rest consists of the actual string, which is 8 finger breadths long. And that is what is accepted by Shulchan Aruch, that it must, the string part must be 8 finger breadths. Now, how much is a finger? What is the width of a finger? Here we also have a machloket. According to Rav Chaim Na'eh, it says it's 2 centimeters each. So if your strings have to be minimum 8 centimeters, that means the rest of the string needs to be 16 centimeters. That's how long the strings should be. If to fulfill the opinion of Shulchan Aruch, and it must be 24 centimeters from the actual start of the tzitzit by the first knot. Okay, so a little bit of technical laws over there.
Well, where is the source where they're getting their measurements? I mean, Shulchan saying, some saying 3 hours.
Well, yeah, because Bet Shammai Bet Hillel says it needs to be 3 or 4 finger breadths, but the machloket is, where do we start counting those finger breadths from? Is it from the twisted part? Okay, the wound, meaning the bottom part of the tzitzit, or once you've already knotted, right? So that's the machloket. So
where is their source of? They're saying, well, I'm holding.
Oh, where do they get 3 and 4 from? I'm not sure. Okay. I'm not sure where they get it from. Okay. Now, there is a Gemara that says, so lechatchila, we said lechatchila, the length of the string should be at least 16 centimeters long. Lechatchila. So just for people to know, the size of a fist is about 10 centimeters. This is about 10 centimeters. So it's not 16 centimeters isn't actually that long of a string, but that's lechatchila how long it should be. Now, there's another Gemara Masechet Menachot that says that if the tzitzit were severed, then they're still kosher if at least the amount of kedeh aniva remains. Now, what is kedeh aniva? The amount that you can make a knot. So how long is that? So some say it's between 4 and 5 centimeters. Chazoni says it's 5 centimeters. Rav Chaim Na'eh says 4 centimeters. This is about 4 centimeters right here. This is the length of a string that someone can still make a slip knot. So it says the Gemara Maseh Menachot Lamed Chet, Amar Bnei Rabbi Chia, the sons of Rabbi Chia said, Gardumet Tchelet Ksherim, severed Tchelet strings are kosher, but Gardumet Ezov Ksherim, and so are severed hyssop branches are also fit for sprinkling with the paraduma. Bekama shiurim gardumin, what measure do severed strings need to be? Amar baramduri amar shmuel kedel anevan, enough to make a knot. Im nifsak hachut meikaro psula. But if the string was severed at the base where it's connected to the garment, then the tzitzit is it's unfit. So here, based on this Gemara, the Mishnah Brura has a very popular and often followed halacha. You might see many people do this. According to everybody, if one of the strings was detached from the source, that's where it is attached to the garment, it is invalid, according to everyone. The Taz writes, that every God-fearing Jew should examine the base of the tzitzit at the time of the inspection, meaning the place where it's attached to the corner to see if it is torn. And you might see many Jews, they always, when they take out their talit, they make sure to check the tzitzit. Now, the problem is that I see many people checking the strings. That's good, but it's not really what the Mishnah Brura is saying. What you got to do is check the base where the knots meet the garment to make sure nothing over there is torn and severed. Not long ago, I was going through my tzitzit and I found one that was cut. It was cut right there. You don't even realize sometimes because it gets like tangled. And, you clean it, you wash it, and it got cut. And I had to replace the tzitzit. I had to redo the strings. Now, says Tosafot on this Gemara, now that we place four threads, bet mishum lavan bet mishum tchelet, 2 white ones and 2 tchelet ones. And we fold them over into 8. We have to be careful. That if 3 out of the 8 were detached, maybe they were out of the were 3 out of the 4 different strings, and then you don't have 2 complete threads remaining. So the box here on page 167 clarifies this. To understand the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam, we should mention again that the tzitzit consists of 4 long single strings that are doubled over. The 4 strings then become 8 with 4 on each side. Therefore, even if one string on one side is completely ripped, the other side of that string may still have a k'teh aniva remaining. According to Rabbeinu Tam, at least 2 of the single strings, which is 4 doubled strings, must be complete. Therefore, if 3 out of the 8 doubled strings are ripped, then the tzitzit are pasul because they may be from 3 of 4 single strings. You don't know where they're from. It could be, what you're seeing could be 3 of the 4. In contrast, the Rosh holds that even if all 4 single strings were ripped, the tzitzit are still kosher if a kedeh aniva remains on all of them. And that's what the Rosh says. So according to the Rosh, the tzitzit only become pasul if 2 sides of the string become pasul, such that less kedeh aniva remains past the tied part on both sides. Okay? So the Shulchan Aruch does say that the halacha is like the Rosh, but the Rama adds that really we should be following the opinion of the Rabbeinu Tam. So let's look at the Shulchan Aruch over here, and actually, let's look at the Piskei Tshuvot, because I think he sums it up a little bit easier without going into the Rishonim. So the Piskei Tshuvot in number 10 says, נקרא חוט אחד מה8 חוטים לאחר גברת תליית הציציות בכנף כדין וכהלכה. If one of the 8 strings was ripped after they were properly attached, אפילו נחתך על הקשר, even if it was cut right up until the lowest knot, ולא נשאר ממנו כלום, and nothing is left of it, הציצית כשרים לכל הדעות. Your tzitzit is still kosher. Okay? Now, that's if one was cut. נקראו 2 חוטים מתוך 8 החוטים. If 2 out of the 8 strings were ripped, ולא נשאר בהם כדי עניבה, enough that they're not long enough that you can make a knot, אזי, now, אם דקדק בשעת תליית הציצית, שיהיו תמיד אותם 4 ראשים מצד אחד ו4 ראשים מצד השני, if you made sure that when you were tying the tzitzit, that you kept each of the 4 apart, you knew which that the 4 that were inserted stayed on the right side, and then you had the other 4 on the left. And that's how I make my tzitzit. I always make sure that they stay separate from each other. Then you can say that the 2 that were ripped on one side were part of that one side, and therefore you still have kosher tzitzit. But if you were not careful of this, or you got one tzitzit ripped from each side, a tzitzit psula, the tzitzit is disqualified, unless one of the 2 strings still contained kedeh aniva. If 3 out of the 8 were ripped, even if all of them are long enough to be kedeh aniva, then depends. This is the Rosh and Rabbeinu Tam. La Rosh tzitzit kshera. According to Rosh, we said that it's kosher. La Rabbeinu Tam sula. According to Rabbeinu Tam, they're disqualified. We should ideally follow Rabbeinu Tam. Try to repair or replace the tzitzit. But you don't need to remove the tzitzit immediately. Okay. Fine. Good. Let's move on to page 172. 172. Here we have the different customs of tying the tzitzit. Different customs of tying the tzitzit. So the Gemara Menachot says, Tana, hapochet lo yifchot misheva. One who is tying the tzitzit should not do less than 7. Vehamosif lo yosif al shlosh esrei. And one who adds should not have more than 13. Why? What's significant about 7 and 13? Hapochet lo yifchot misheva keneged shiva reke'im. You don't want to have fewer than 7 because 7 corresponds to the 7 heavens, the 7 firmaments. Vehamosif lo yosif al shlosh esrei. And the maximum should be 13. Why? Keneged shiva reke'im veshisha avirin shebenehem. Because to each of the firmaments there are 6 air spaces in between the skies, and therefore that gives you 13. So now this 7 and 13, what does that refer to? So the Rambam says it's in reference to the sets that you're making, and that a person can make between 7 and 13 sets of windings, which means very, very long tzitzit, quite a lot of windings. But Tosafot says that no, it's different. It's how many times you wrap. So the Bet Yosef says that the practice is to have only 4 windings, 4 sets, and the numbers of wraps are 7, 9, 11, and 13. You're looking at me like, wait, where did that 9 come from? Yeah, we're going to get to that. He says it's 7, 9, 11, and 13. Says the Bet Yosef here on source number 12. V'ani ra'iti, I saw shenoagim likroch ba'avir lishon 7 krichot, 7 windings. Ubasheni 9, and on the second one 9. Ubashlishi 11, the third one 11. Ubarebi'i 13, and then 13. 7 plus 9 plus 11 plus 13. She'olim kol hakrichot 40. It has a numerical value of 40. Keminyan Adonai Echad, which is the same gematria as Hashem Echad, she'ole lametet, which actually equals 39. Ve'im Hashem ole 40, and the name of God itself is 40. So that's what he says, 7, 9, 11, 13. Venireli, it seems to me, shetamam lefi shehem sovrim, because they hold that when the Gemara said no less than 7, no more than 13, it's in reference to the windings between each knot, not the number of sets. That's why we start with 7, because you can't go less than 7. And we go upwards. It's always better to go higher in Kedusha. And we end with 13. Okay? Now, the Mishnah Brura brings down and quotes the Arizal that the number should not be 7, 9, 11, and 13, but rather it should be 7, 8, 11, and 13. So instead of 9 for the second set, it's 8. So that's what he says. The Mishnah Brura in source 13 says, Ube kavanot, meaning the kavanot of the Arizal, katuv basheni het, 8 on the second one. The zayin v'chet hu shem shel yud-kei. That the name of Hashem is yud-kei, it's 15. That's what 7 and 8 is. That's what it comes up with. Now there are other customs that are brought down in terms of what people do. Some people do 20. Brings that down as well. The Akut Yosef brings that down as well, and and many people follow that. Some people, they make a difference between talit gadol and talit katan. So for their talit, their big talit, they will put they will do 7, 8, 11, and 13 based on the Arizal. And then for the Tzitzit, for the Talit Katan, they will do Yud Ke Vav Ke. That's what I do personally. But any one is good, whether you want to do 7, 8, 11, 13 for both, or some people even do Yud Ke Vav Ke for both. I think that was often the minhag in Morocco to do it like that. That is also fine. Okay. The next section of this shiur is a very controversial one, to say the least, which is, should the tzitzit be tucked in or should they be hanging out? It's a big question that's often asked. Now, of course, the first source that we have to look at, and the first source that is being brought, is the actual pasuk in Parashat Shelach Lecha that speaks about tzitzit, where the pasuk says, "V'haya lachem tzitzit uritem oto." Uritem oto means, and you will see it. So, what is the whole purpose of tzitzit? So you will see it, so that you can remember all the mitzvot. So here the Tur says, "Ikar mitzvatal zechirat mitzvot." The purpose of this mitzvah is to remember the mitzvot. Ubekol sha'av kol rega tzarich lekach, and this has to be done at all times and all moments. Dugma ledavar. This is comparable. Ke'adam ha'mashir lechavero al inyan echad. A person warns about his friend about something. Shekosher kesher bezuro kedei sheizkerenu, and ties a knot on his belt so that it will remind him of that. Okay? So now, what do I do? What is the best way to remind myself about all the mitzvot? The answer is to look at the tzitzit. So much so, as the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Chet Halacha Yud Aleph says, "Ikar mitzvah talit katan lelovso al begadav." That the main mitzvah of tzitzit, the small tzitzit, is to wear, it says talit katan, is to wear it on top of your clothes. Kedei shetamid yir'eu ve'yizkor hamitzvot, so that a person will always see it and remember the mitzvah. Yet, rarely do you see people act in accordance with this halakha and Shulchan Aruch. Right? Almost no one you see putting the tzitzit over their clothing. Now, that you see some chasim that do it. Some chasim do it. Yeah, some chasim do it, but many people don't. So here the Mishnah Berurah says, "Ubiktabim," in the writings of Kabbalah, "Ita de talit katan tachat begadav." That's why, because according to Kabbalah, the talit katan should be underneath the clothing. Vekatava Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham says that kol panim tzarich sheyu asisit mibachutz, but the string should be outside. Velo keinach shetochavin otan be'aknafot, and not those who tuck them into the corners of their garment. But those people who are around non-Jews, okay, fine, you can keep your tzitzit tucked in. But when you're reciting the bracha, they should be exposed. And the reason is, you want to see it. The Mishnah Berurah gives some harsh language here. Those people who put their tzitzit inside their pants, not only are they ignoring what the pasuk is saying for you to do, which is to see the tzitzit, but more than that, they are degrading the mitzvah. And guess what? They're going to have to pay for this. There's going to be judgment against them. That which we said, that if you're walking amongst the non-Jews, that's just enough to put the tzitzit in the corner. If they've received a present from a human king that had the name of a king engraved in it, you know how much you'd want to show off that gift? If the king gave you a present with his name on it, you want to show everybody the beautiful piece of jewelry or clothing that you got. Kal vachomer betzitzit, all the more so when it comes to tzitzit, shemeramez Hashem melech malchei melachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where Hashem's name is hinted into it, and of course the Kol HaTorah Kula. Kama mitkabed ha'adam hanoseh shmo alav, how much is a person honored who wears his name upon him? And hence, based on this Mishnah Berurah, you will find many religious many religious Ashkenazim who will keep their tzitzit outside as well. And you also even have some Sfaradim that do so. Although, as we're going to see right now, that this is not the opinion of the majority of the Sfaradim. Yakut Yosef brings down in his Sefer, Minhagenu shegam hatzitziot mechusot tachat habegadim. Yakut Yosef says that the strings are supposed to be concealed beneath the garment. And this is what the practice of the great Sephardic scholars was, even himself. And this is proper according to Kabbalah. And is the minhag of the Ashkenazim to hold it outside. However, Rabbi Yaakov Hillel in source 19 seems to indicate that the Arizal felt differently. Permitting the tzitzit inside refers to the garment of the tzitzit. The string should not be tucked in one's garment. So you could fulfill the commandment of Uritem Oto. Like the Ari says, a person should be looking at his tzitzit at all times. And it's great benefit for the soul, so that sin does not occur to him if he is careful about this. So, like I said, a very controversial deen in terms of does the tzitzit strings get placed outside or not. It's still seen and accepted amongst most Faradim to keep the tzitzit inside and not show it. The reason why they do that is probably is mishum yuhara, is bisham of being humble with your mitzvot. We don't want to show off. And again, those Ashkenazim who do wear it outside, and even the few Sfaradim that do, they're doing it to fulfill the mitzvah of Uritem Oto. It seemed definitely in many of the Sephardic lands, it was not that way to put your tzitzit out. It was more humble in our mitzvot, and that is what I do, and that is what many others do as well. However, even that is the case, we still have to respect and love everybody and whatever they do, whatever they feel comfortable. You want to do something that brings a person close to Hashem, brings yourself close to Hashem. And if that means, I think that's something that often is not addressed enough, that if a person feels that that the tzitzit that he's wearing out is going to bring him closer to Hashem, and that it's going to prevent him from doing averot, because again he's going to look at the tzitzit and it's going to remind him of a mitzvot, then for sure that's what he should do. And I'll be the first person to say that if that indeed is your goal and your purpose, and then a person should definitely wear his tzitzit out if indeed that's what it is. But if you're a Sfaradi and you want to wear your tzitzit out only because an Ashkenazi rabbi told you to do it, that's incorrect, right? That's not the minhag of Otenu, it's not minhag of our forefathers. But again, if it's going to inspire you to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then that situation I would say to put the tzitzit out, as you would probably do with any mitzvah. All right, and whatever you do in your life that is going to make your connection stronger, you should do. If you want to pray with a siddur that has English translation, Hazar Baruch. If you feel you have more translation, not with English, there's so many different things that we do in our daily tefillah that are all based on how much what's going to bring you more kavanah, where you should pray, especially in the Yamim Noraim. Person should pray in a synagogue that he feels comfortable in, where he recognizes the piyutim, where he recognizes the songs that are being sang, because that is what's going to bring him more kavanah, and that's what's going to bring him closer to Hashem. Okay, so therefore every person has to make that decision, the decision on their own. Okay, moving on. Says the Gemara Masechet Megillah, we're on page 177, treating tzitzit with proper respect. Tana Banan, Tashmishei mitzvah nizrakim. Articles that are used in the performance of the mitzvah can be thrown away. Tashmishei kedusha, but articles that are associated with sanctity of Hashem's name, meaning they have God's name written, nignazim, they must be buried, interred. What is considered a article of a mitzvah? sukkah, lulav, shofar, tzitzit. So these 4 can be thrown away. You want to throw your sukkah? You can throw away your sukkah. You don't have to bury your sukkah. You don't like your shofar anymore because when you bought it, it made this really, really blasting sound, and now you barely get a pipsqueak. Okay, and you want to toss it? So toss it. You can toss it. You can throw away your lulav, as many people do. They burn it with their hametz, and even the tzitzit, because they're an article of a mitzvah. They're not tashmishe. They're not tashmishe kedusha, and that's what Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Kaf Aleph. Chutei tzitzit shenifseku. If strings were detached, yachol lezarkan le'ashpa, you could throw them in the garbage. It's a mitzvah that does not have intrinsic holiness. But as long as they are affixed to a talit, then then you can't use them for anything else. In other words, you can't use your talit as a tablecloth when you have tzitzit on them. That would be a bizui mitzvah. It's not proper respect. But now the tzitzit rip, you want to throw it out and maybe then use it for something else, fine. Detach the strings and go use your talit for a tablecloth if you want. I wouldn't do it, but still, if you need it, you need it. Now the Ramah is more strict. The Ramah says, some say even after they're detached, it's not proper to treat them disgracefully and throw them in an unclean location. It just means that you don't have to bury them. Some people are careful to do gniza. A person would receive bracha. Talit garments that became worn out. A person should separate them separate himself from the garments. But again, don't use them to clean you got tomato sauce, pizza sauce on your chin. You're not using this to clean your tzitzit and your worn out talit to clean your tomato sauce. You're allowed to enter the bathroom with a tzitzit. Now the Mishnah Berurah here says that this only applies to talit katan. It does not apply to your big tzitzit. But it seems, based on the words of the Yakut Yosef, that he is taking the Shulchan Aruch literally, that you can enter the bathroom with any tzitzit. Let's see what he says. Number 1, you're allowed to clean your glasses with the cloth of your talit. Even with your big talit. This is not considered a degrading usage. Talitot gdolot sheyesh bahen atara beroshan ha'echad. A talit gadol that has an adornment on the neck. Va'aliyah rekumim dvarim shebedusha, and they have holy words. Some people, they have holy words written on the back of the teeth. Some people, they write the whole bracha. Kegon sherachmo itpisu hazeh nusach birkat talit. You might see Baruch Ata Hashem Lokeinu Asher Itatev B'Tzitzit written on their talit. Asur likanes bahen lebet hakiseh af la'atalat meraglav. He is not allowed to enter, the bathroom, even only to urinate. Now, so what does that imply? That implies that you can. If you don't have the bracha on you, it's with cloth. And I think that's the pshat of the Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch says because it's not tashmishek tusha. It's not something that is, it's not a holy book. You're not walking with a book of Tehillim or a Humash with words of Hashem. It's a tashmisheh mitzvah. And I can bring my etrog into a bathroom. And there's no difference between my lulav and etrog and my now. You're going to talk to me about negative spirits in the bath. Okay, I get that. But Piyadin, you will be allowed to do so. Right? Because people that are going to the bathroom, Ashkenazim that are going to the bathroom with the seat hanging out, they're not tucking in their seat when they're going to the bathroom. They're going to seat out. So Ma'avdil, what's the difference? So it seems that Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef and Rabbi Vadia are saying the only issue is if you have a bracha on your tzitzit or some sort of psukim, which he says, by the way, is not allowed to do in the next halacha.
I don't think really anybody
I know that. Most people don't. They hang their talit somewhere outside.
I would say 99.99.
Yeah, they hang themselves outside. Yeah. But listen to something, you want to go in to get something from the bathroom. Let's say not even to urinate. You just want to get something from the bathroom. I don't think it's I don't see any problem in halacha with it.
Even if you go to the bathroom, you need to wash your hands.
Okay, so wash your hands. What does one have to do with the other? Right? Speaking of psukim al talit, asul lirkom psukim al talit. You're not allowed to embroider psukim al talit. Ve'omnam, however, yesh shekatvu shebizman hazeh nagu la'akel bazeh. Some people are lenient. Achar shemakpidim lishmor et talit bechavod ve'ena pasuk bali de bizayon, because people nowadays are careful to treat the talit with respect, and we'll make sure it's not degraded. Aval maran b'shulchan aruch pasak le'esor, but nevertheless, Shulchan Aruch says forbidden. But if you already had it embroidered, some people will go, they have the old psukim on their thing. You already embroidered, you are allowed to say a bracha on it, but you have to treat it with special holiness. Again, it's not as bad as a pasuk, a symbol, but I don't think there's an issue with it. Yeah, people they put Magen Davids on it. Yeah, a lot of people do that. Again, I don't think it was the way. We spoke about the stripes before. The stripes was to remember the techelet. I gave a shiur on that not long ago. But generally, the custom was just to have it a plain cloth that's designated for the talit. But yeah, if you have a Magen David, it's still fine. It's still kosher. You have a four corner garment that you're wearing. Right, it's a garment. That's what it is. The last part of the shiur is whether or not women can tie tzitzit. So Shulchan Aruch in Siman Yudalet says, "Ve'aisha keshera la'asotan." That a woman is allowed to affix the tzitzit to the garment. Now, even though we learned that women are exempt from tzitzit, okay, they are allowed to affix the strings. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. But the Rama argues. The Rama says, "Ve'yesh machmirim lehatzrich anashim sheyasu otan." Some are strict to require men to make them. V'tov la'asot ken lechatechila, and that is best to do. And why is that the reason? Why is the Rama machmir? Va'afilu omed al gaban, even if you have men standing next to the women washing them, lo mehani, it doesn't help. Mishum de'aktiv bnei Israel. Daber el bnei Israel ve'amart alem. Bnei Israel means the sons of Israel. Ve'asu masma gam le'ma'et benot Israel. Ve'asu la'em tzitzit. Bnei Israel ve'asu la'em tzitzit. I mean, the men have to do it, which come to exclude the benot. But that,
if somebody is not obligated to wear tzitzit, which is a woman is not allowed to, how can she have in mind for the mitzvah of tzitzit?
all right, so that's a question on the Shulchan Aruch. Obviously it's a big question, right? You have a boy that wants to start and put tzitzit and his mom's helping him, right? Is that allowed? So according to Shulchan Aruch it is. And even we're going to see now, final piece that we're going to do today, when the Rama and the Mishnah Berurah say that you cannot do it, women cannot do it, it's only the initial knot. But after that is allowed. And let's do that and we'll conclude. Source number 26. V'davka im techavo biknaf o asa hachulya o hakesher harishon. This is only affixing to the corner or forming the first winding or not. That's what's problematic. Aval im hachulya ve'hakesher harishon asa Yisrael. If you have a male Jew that did the first one, ve'ha'eno Yehudi gmar sha'ar hachulyot, and you even had a non-Jew finish it, Raksharim, ena nakle mitzvah be'alma kasher. It's only an additional mitzvah component and is allowed, which means that we'll see that even women are allowed to tie or wind the rest of the tzitzit once the first is tied.
So then we all so far are male.
Mhm.
Lady
Mm-hmm.
She can't.
If she, sorry, repeat
A
that.
lady write a mezuzah?
Can a lady-
Yeah, the parchment mezuzah.
Yeah.
She do, because she's not obligated in mezuzah, or she's not obligated into all these mitzvahs. So
Yeah.
can she write?
I don't know of any. I don't know of any. I think there has to be a certain level of your body has to be in a very clean state, which I think could pose a problem for ladies who are sometimes not in that clean state. But it is a big topic, we're not going to do it today, but there's a beautiful further iyun section here of recycling mitzvah objects on what a person can use. It's a good read. It's a good read, and Amir Hashem will continue next week with more halachot Tzitzit. Thank you everybody for joining. Have a wonderful evening.